All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Robert Smirking Gun Reviews. Pardon me. And we finally made it to the end of these reviews after a while. This is The Haunting of Hill House, Episode 10, Silence Lay Steadily. So full spoilers if you haven't seen the episode. Yeah, I got just about as choked up as I did the first time watching it. And I realized some things that I didn't really think about the first time around. And again, this is just fantastic way to wrap it up. And again, I can see why if you had a certain, way you wanted this to go down, that this would be disappointing to you. But I mean, I kind of feel like it was headed towards this ending. I don't think there was another ending that they were building towards, if you kind of follow it logically and how they were telling the story and clues that they leave behind. Like I said a few reviews back about fighting with love, which is like a huge part of this. I also didn't know, and I couldn't figure out what to put as the background, man. I thought about a bunch of different things, but then again, I picked this one because I wanted to cement family. Again, no ghosts, just family. So let's get into this. Wow. Well, one of the major things about this is if we finally get to know what the Red Room is, and as Nell puts it later, that it's basically like the stomach. Like if a house is as a body, this is the stomach, where it digests you, where it keeps you still and just can slowly absorb you. Now, I don't think that's physically what it's doing. I think it is just taking from you. Which is why everybody's room, except for like Theo's, she's the only one kind of in constant motion. The rest was the game room, Steve's sitting there. The family room, Cheryl's just kind of sitting there. There's not a lot of activity going on. And that basically, if you needed a place to go, that door would always be open. We were the keys, as they say in episode 9. And so this gives us all the different details of, and to me, like right when it starts out, that's what hell's like. Like for Steve and for Cheryl and Theo and Luke especially. That would be hell, what this house is making you see. Because it's giving you this nice familiar, just accept this and you'll be fine. As soon as you question it, then it gets dark. And man, does Steve's get dark quick. I mean, that actress, I love how she just delivers this just this straight forward speech that gets darker and darker and darker as it goes along, because he's not going along with it. If he had just gone along with it and let the house kill him, he'd be, fine. But as soon as you start to fight back, or if you start to question it, it turns on you. And this is where we see where we're going to see the fighting with love, where Nell may have died there, but her love for her family didn't. And that's the thing that the house can't control, is that while it's had some very terrible people die in the house, if you kill somebody that, it underestimated, if the house has kind of a consciousness, it underestimated taking out a member, the members of this family, or trying to, because they'll fight for each other. And that's what we begin to see here, where Nell wakes up Steve. And then we get to, oh wow, it kind of bounces out. So then Cheryl, where she sees the guy with the drink. I also love how Poppy's just popping up here. Before I get to the rest of the other things, I want to talk about Poppy. I still don't think that she's the evil. I think she's just a part of it. And that if this show was going to have a face, that Poppy would have to be the one to be that face. You could have all these other different ghosts coming in, but I think it's just too much. But Poppy's just the perfect example of the complete psychosis and the way that this house thinks. So anyway, let's get back to Cheryl. So Cheryl, seeing that one time, that perfect Cheryl had that moment of weakness, and did something that she regrets. And even though that's kind of like, this is like the least dark of the moments, it is still enough to where she needs to get woken up by Nell as well. And then we get to Theo, who can't remember feeling, and then having all those hands all over her would just be another thing, like, again, they're not going along with, things, and then all of a sudden the hands come up, and then Nell has to show and she has to reach out and wake her up that way. Luke, on the other hand, Luke is flat out dead, in my opinion. They almost save him, and I think he's kind of in between, where we get to see Olivia and young Nell, and in the white tea room, and I think that's representing that he's died, sort of like if he, when they say go towards the light kind of thing, like he's in that in between space that movies and shows and near death experience people like to talk about. But I like, even in here, Nell, in one form, a different, is telling him to go. Don't listen to what Mother's saying. It's all lies. The hats on the head were another nice touch. And I do like that, that he comes back too. And then that's when we get Nell, shows herself and explains, the red room and how it was everything that we needed. Whenever we needed it, it was there. And it's been feeding on us. And it's just such a great scene, and there's so many great lines in this episode. Now let's get to Hugh, where Poppy sees him and her little speech about, all the people, she talks about this whole family one by one getting, killed. And I believe, to me, she's describing a family that's died in this house. But it's nice to see that Olivia, tells her to get away from him, he's not for you. But again, there's like lines like the empty beds, I don't know, I can't say it now, but this moment here between Hugh and Olivia, where he is having to try to basically negotiate for their children's lives. And it's really well written, because she's seeing things from one perspective and he's seeing it from the other. She's seeing it from the dead perspective, the poisoned perspective, that he stole the children. She's still poisoned. She died that way. She died that way, thinking that way. She's gone on into the other realm thinking that way. And it's up to him to convince her otherwise. And it's really well done, because she's convinced that if, they die, then there will be no more suffering. But he has to remind her that that's the contract. You have kids, you have to let them go and live their lives, whether it's good or bad, and you have to watch it all. You don't get to just pick and choose, and to deny them that is to deny that you can remove the bad, but you also are removing the good. And even though it is kind of silly to try to negotiate with a spirit, you kind of can overlook it, because then he makes the deal that we find out later is for his own life. He'll stay in replace of the children. And while I do think that's a little silly, in the end, it's all silly. It's just a story. But it's a plot point that I can just kind of forgive, just to get us to where we need to go, which is them getting out of the house. And I was surprised that that's not where it ended, because then we get, the whole part with Steve and Hugh showing Steve what happened after they got into the car and he came back, and the whole deal with the Dudleys. Now, this was the part that I don't know why I didn't recognize the first time around, but that Abigail wasn't an imaginary person, that she wasn't a ghost. I forgot about that. I forgot that because of Olivia, not only did they lose their baby, like stillborn, and that they blame the house for it, but now Olivia is the house through Olivia is responsible for killing their other daughter, the one that they had kept safe, and that she was a person. You just never saw her because they kept her so secret and safe. No one knew about her. And so it'd be pretty easy to call her an imaginary friend because she's not supposed to even be near the house. And so a double tragedy is now Olivia's dead and their daughter's dead. And in order to keep Olivia's memory intact, Hugh has to keep the house there so that they can see their daughter, and that everything will nobody will come here. We'll keep it safe, but only if you don't burn this place to the ground. See, I like what Hugh says. Like, I'm gonna burn this place to the ground. I'm gonna watch every splinter get immolated, and then I'm gonna salt the earth. Part of me wanted that to happen. In fact, a really, really big part of me wanted that to happen. Because honestly, the Dudleys didn't really help all that much. If they had helped a little bit more, maybe none of this had happened. But that's, again, it's the script, it's the screenplay. They wanted the story to go a certain way. But in my brain, I would have been like, fuck you. You guys knew all this shit. You really should have tried to, a little bit harder. Because now I'm going to burn this motherfucker to the ground. But again, for story's sake and for the nicer ending, this more poignant, kind of sad, kind of melancholy, but also kind of beautiful way. The Dudleys go back there later and they both die there. Or at least you see her die. Mrs. Dudley die there, and she's reunited with her family. And I do like that Mr. Dudley says that there's a lot of precious things in these walls and they don't all belong to you. That's another great line. But in the end, it's kind of like this house is filled with bad things, but they're not all evil. Now, there's a wacky show for you. The evil ghosts and the happy ghosts trying to find a way to live together. That's kind of interesting because, once the story's over, if you use your imagination, if the ghosts are all still there, then what kind of life is that? That would be a terrible sitcom. But in the end, it is like they get out. Hugh sacrifices himself to stay behind, and Steve is witness to what happened, and now he sees that his dad is staying. He died. And I do like that image of Nell and Olivia in the background. And then he turns young. And another thing about the whole casting of with Timothy Hutton and Henry Thomas is, when people are talking about the way that they look in comparison and stuff, what I like about how haggard, some people go like, would he really look that different? After, let's say it's been 20 some years, right? And why would he look so much different? Well, just to give you an idea of when somebody is taken away from the thing that they love. Have you ever seen that person later on, not too long after? Because I feel like when all this happened to Hugh's character, and eventually just being pulled completely away from his family. He has lost his wife. He has lost one of his daughters. And now he essentially has lost all the children that he was supposed to keep safe. And I feel like, and this is just a simple example of how I saw somebody change when they were removed from the thing that they loved. And I know it's a stretch, but just bear with me. Okay, so I used to live in Wisconsin, and by living in Wisconsin, I kind of became a Packer fan after the fact because of Brett Favre. And that guy looked great throughout his whole football career. He loved football. He eat and breathed it until he retired. And even then, it seemed like he didn't really want to quit. He kept going. He went to the Jets and he went to Minnesota. And then, just 2 years after he retired, did you see that guy? He looks like an old man. He went from being vibrant to just old. It's like as soon as he stopped being around the thing he loved, once it was pulled away from him, he just got old. And I know that's a weird stretch, but I feel like that you can compare that kind of the way how Hugh looks, the haggardness, the he's had the joy of life sucked out of him so badly that he looks old. He's just more haggard looking. And I know that that's probably weird and people are going to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? But maybe if there's a couple of people out there that know what I mean. Like if you know, when somebody retires or whatever and they're not around the thing that they do or love, that sometimes you can just get older. So anyway, let's get back on track. So anyway, I apologize for anyone who didn't understand what I was trying to say or thought that was really stupid. And I loved, you know, we get the ending of Steve telling the story, I am home, and him finally being able to tell his estranged wife, you know, what's going on, and Cheryl telling her husband what happened 6 years ago. And Theo taking the gloves off, putting them in the garbage, moving on with her life. And Luke is now like 2 years sober. And they're all still together after, you know, and she's pregnant. And, you know, after all that, they're still a family. They've survived. Now, and it's all just really, really beautiful. And it made me choke up. And even though you get the last shot is of the house, there's still that like light on, that glow that's inside there. And again, it's like nothing I've ever seen before, and it's still the best thing I've seen all year. I was wondering if I would change my mind about that, but it's still cemented in my brain as this is the best thing I've seen all year. And I really hope they don't do a sequel. While I was watching this episode, I was trying to think what they would do, and all I can think is that, you know, I don't know, somebody else tries to buy the house and something happens. I don't know. I really just don't want. I like this being its one thing. If they want to make, if Netflix decides they want to make more series like this, that's fine. Just don't use the same, you know, characters. I think that their story's over. I think it's nice to just think of the way that they are now. You know. Anyway, and that's it. I'm sure I'll be kicking myself later for forgetting a few things, but that's about it. I've given a lot of time to this show, even though it's taken me a while to finish all the episodes reviews for it. But I'm glad that I've done this. I hope everybody enjoyed them. So speaking of enjoyment, if you liked this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Hit the bell for all notifications. I want to thank the support I get for this channel. I want to thank all of you for watching this. I know there are plenty of people that review things, and this one's special to me, and I really appreciate everybody that checks it out. So anyway, this is Robert Smirking Interview saying, if you haven't seen my two-part review, if you're you know, interested in my whole view of the whole series, I have a two-part one on the channel. So anyway, this is Robert Smirking Interview saying, I can't believe we're done. I almost wish I could keep talking about it, but that's it. So we'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye.